Hello, Steeler Nation. Welcome to a very special Sunday edition here of the Meta Steel podcast right now, as we are a day away from when the legal negotiations could start beginning for NFL free agency. It will begin tomorrow on March the 14th, up to the cutoff time of Wednesday, March 16th at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, which then at that time, the new league year will start for the 2022 NFL season. It is St. Patty's Day weekend right now, and right now on the line joining me, hopefully Steelers can strike some gold here in the near future, but pleasure to be joined right now by a frequent guest on 93.7 The Fan, occasionally, especially in the Cook and Joe show, and he also covers the Steelers as their beat writer for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm talking about none other than Ray Fittipaldo of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. You can follow him on Twitter at RayFit1. You can check out a lot of his tweets. And if you guys want to see more of his articles on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, feel free to subscribe. Ray, it's a pleasure having you on here today. I thank you very much. How are you and what's happening, my man?
Well, nothing much. Glad to be on your show. And I guess it's the all before the storm. I got a feeling I'm going to be real busy this week, but just another 24 hours or so before free agency begins. And really, for the first time in a long time, Steelers have a lot of cap space. And as you know, they got a ton of needs to fill on both offense and defense. So I think they're going to be active.
Yeah, I definitely feel like they're going to be active, but maybe not as so much as many Steeler fans would think. I mean, to be honest with you, they seem pretty consistent. Kevin Colbert was saying, too. He's saying that they've never spent this much before in the past, but at the same time, too, I mean, this is a different off season right now. Real quickly, before we go any further into the free agency period, let's just kick it off right now. Kevin Colbert, he is pretty much going to be stepping down, but he insists that this is not a retirement as he has stated before. He still wants to be somewhat of a consultant to the team. And then the hiring process with the GM won't probably happen until like soon after the draft, maybe a little bit longer. We'll wait and see. But a guy who's been around here for 22 years, a storied Hall of Fame legacy in our books, watching what he's built together. One name that seems very interesting to me when I look at it is Louis Riddick, the former Monday Night Football analyst, since Joe Buck and Troy Aikman will be filling that void on Monday Night Football, the new announced team. Surely he'll be looking for a job soon if it's not going to be on TV. But for right now, can you tell me if you're hearing anything latest on the Steelers GM, like as far as fans being narrowed down? And what would you think of a guy like Louis Riddick bring on board to fill that void if they go in that direction?
Yeah, sure. It's been pretty quiet on the GM front for maybe a week or 10 days. They went through a period there for about 2 weeks where they were interviewing, 4 or 5 candidates each week, and then they were letting us know, who those candidates were. And so it seemed like they were on a pretty steady schedule as far as the interviews, go. But it has slowed down here. As you know, they're ramping up towards free agency, and then after that, they're going to be ramping up towards the draft. So you're right. This isn't going to take place, until probably a week or so after the draft. I would guess first or second week of May. Art Rooney will get around to naming a guy. Listen, I still think it's going to be Brandon Hunt or Omar Khan. But as you know, Louis Riddick is one of 10 or 12 candidates that they brought in here. So they're doing their homework, they're doing their due diligence on these guys, and they're trying to find the best candidate. But, the way the Steelers do things, just seems like it's going to be an in-house hire, but, we'll see where it goes. Everyone thought that, it was going to be Russ Grimm's job back in 2007, and Mike Tomlin kind of came out of nowhere. So maybe something similar will happen this year. But if I had to guess right now, I still think it's Hunt and Omar, but we'll see where that goes.
And a lot of things, too. I know the Steelers have been kind of criticized as of late, especially in the media, too, and more so by fans who religiously follow this team. And historically, too, like I just mentioned a few moments ago, too, they're not always big spenders. I mean, they're close to about 30 million, hit that close up to like $90 million too. Mark Caboli of the Athletic also pointed out too when they do some restructures. But let me ask you real quickly, what would you say would be like the difference where the Steelers were at the end of Bill Cowher's run before it transitioned to Mike Tomlin, where they went to 3 more Super Bowls, had some legitimate playoff success. Then you had the Killer B era for that brief, what was it, like, I want to say 5-year period right there when they had the triple threat together. What do you feel like changed all of a sudden to where they're barely, cracking the tip of the iceberg or just getting into the playoffs, being shut out right away? I mean, do you feel like some ways it's kind of off track? And what optimism would you say for Steeler Nation fans to believe otherwise when the game has changed?
I think first and foremost, when Ben Roethlisberger retired, I think everyone has to realize that there's going to be a transition period. That doesn't mean the Steelers aren't going to be contenders. There's a scenario out there where they can put together a very good defense and a good running game, and they can be competitive like they were in the mid-'90s with a quarterback like Neil O'Donnell. So it's happened before, but I think anytime you go through a stretch, and listen, Steelers went through a stretch from 1983 really until 2004 where they couldn't find their next guy, right? I mean, it was Mark Malone, it was David Woodley, Cliff Stout. They went to a Super Bowl with O'Donnell. They went to some championships games with Cordell Stewart, but they never had that franchise guy that they felt like could lead them to a Super Bowl. So until that guy is in place again, there's going to be some uncertainty. But I think they have the roster with guys like T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, Minka Fitzpatrick. They're not going to fall off the face of the earth. They're still going to be a competitive football team. But as you know, quarterbacks are so important. And that's why I think everyone is focused not only on the draft this year, but also free agency. They're trying to figure out what's next and who's next after Ben Roethlisberger.
But also, too, to add to that, I mean, you talk about those mid-'90s Steelers right there, too, when Bill Cowher was that guy who took over for Chuck Noll, helped get them back on track. Obviously, Chuck Noll was, being pressured, like, towards the end of his career. I mean, as they always say, I mean, ever since, like, Bradshaw left, I mean, they made the playoffs only, like, 2 other times since his retirement and only have at least, like, I think, a pair of playoff victories. But still, I mean, they have a period of dark times for playoff losing, and then to see Bill Cowher get that and transition that to Mike Tomlin right now, would it be fair to say too, as far as the people who they want to bring in, as far as go after in a draft or free agency, it's more focused on characters more so than anything, despite the skill set, because people are still going to be pointing, why didn't you have the opportunity to trade for a guy like Aaron Rodgers right now? They could put you back on track in championship mode. Deshaun Watson is another story. I mean, he's just been found legally not guilty. He ain't going to be facing any punishment except pending for a civil case coming up for the women allegation, but still good enough to be any team will want to take a look at him. The Cleveland Browns were mentioned just recently, but it seems like they're sticking with Baker Mayfield. Fair to say that they prefer characters more so than anything as opposed to skill set.
I think you're onto something there. I think you have to get the right guy, the right leader, quarterback your football team. Listen, you mentioned Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson. Obviously, Watson really isn't. I don't think he's in play for a number of reasons that we won't get into. The Rodgers stuff, the the Russell Wilson stuff. It's a situation where this year they really didn't have the draft capital to go up and make a move like that, to go out and trade away 3 first-round picks or 2 firsts and 2 seconds. The way that some of the offers were for both Rodgers and for Wilson. So it's a really unique period for the Steelers. I think Kevin and Mike realize they have to get better in the trenches. They have to get better at inside linebacker. There are just too many other needs on this team right now. And I know they got a good defense, and I know they got some good pieces on defense. But in order for this team to take the next step, I think they have to fix trenches first. So go offensive line, go defensive line, in free agency and the draft, and then figure out your quarterback situation. That's not to say that it's not important this year. It's very important this year. But you have so many other places on this team where you need upgrades or where guys are getting old. I just think it's a very important couple of weeks here for Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin to get this roster in order, find some free agent starters, and go draft some guys who can help you this year, and then go out and get your quarterback next year or the year after.
We are talking with Ray Fittipaldo here on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette here on the Mastio Podcast. Once again, follow him on Twitter at RayFit1. Check out all his articles at Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Remember, if you guys want to read a little bit more, you would have to subscribe to that. But continuing along the way, too, and I'm looking at your most recent article, too, at least 3 out of the top 5. You got split in half down the middle, 5 being on the offense, and then the last 5 on defense. But 3 out of the 5, interesting enough, as we know the obvious elephant in the room has been the offensive line, like you're mentioning right now. 3 out of 5 are listed as guards. But starting off number 1, looking at center Ryan Jensen, formerly of the Ravens and Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. How much would you say is that is an indictment of not only Kendrick Green, but J.C. Hassenauer right now? I mean, since obviously feeling the loss and retirement of Marquise Pouncey over a year ago, how vital is that center position to get fixed right away?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting decision. They were never counting on Hassenauer to be a starter. He's a good backup, a good guy who can play center and guard. But as far as Kendrick Green goes, he played mostly guard in college. They thought he could make the transition to center. It didn't really work out all that well as a rookie last year. So he struggled. It was obvious. It looked like maybe he was a little bit small. Maybe it looked like he wasn't strong enough at times. So whatever they do, they got to figure out whether he plays guard or center. They got to figure out from a technique standpoint, can you block these interior defensive linemen? Because honestly, playing center is one thing, but playing guard, you're going to be going up against the same guys too. So from a technique standpoint, I know he's working hard in the weight room. We see the videos on Instagram and stuff. He's got to get stronger. So you like his versatility. And honestly, I think it could go either way. If they go out and hit a home run and get a guy like Ryan Jensen, okay, Kendrick, you're going to be a guard. You're going to compete with Kevin Dodson or a draft pick, and we'll see, may the best man win. But if they don't get a guy like Jensen, and the better options are at guard, same with James Daniels or another guy who's out there, then you could say, okay, we're gonna go out and get a guard, and Kendrick, we're gonna expect you to be better in year 2. So they do have options. They like the versatility, and I think it's just a matter of who they can sign and who they can draft.
And speaking of which, too, as we look back at the quarterback position once again, and one name I'm hearing an awful lot of over here, since quite frankly, myself has been here in Chicago, looking at former Bear Mitch Trubisky right now, who actually spent a season behind Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, learning other dabble as a offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, I believe it was. But if they bring in a guy like Mitch Trubisky, who's supposed to probably be around like $10, $11 million, seems to be like the cheaper option as opposed to guys like Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, even Jimmy Garoppolo, but he's still coming off of surgery right now. I think he's set to have shoulder surgery, if I'm not mistaken. If they bring in a guy like Mitch Trubisky, would that signal to you that this team is kind of being built around for this year, even though they still have Mason Rudolph building around Najee Harris right now? Because Mason Rudolph, I would tend to believe he'd still be the guy on their center just for quarterback competition. Are they sending a message for right now that, you know what, we don't have that many attractive quarterbacks in free agency or the draft. Let's just build around Najee with this offensive line for the time being. What would you say of that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think what they're looking to do is they're looking to bring some competition in to push Mason Rudolph and to push Dwayne Haskins.
Same.
They like Mason. He's been around, but they don't really know what he is at this point. Second year, he's forced to come in when Roethlisberger gets injured. There was some good in there, but there was a lot of bad too. So I don't think they want to judge him, based on what he did 2 years ago. I think they'd like to find out about him. But you can get a guy like Mitch Trubisky or a guy like Marcus Mariota who can come in and challenge him, and they win a competition fair and square, then again, you would have options. And as you know, Art Rooney isn't in this to tear things down and to rebuild. That's just not, in the Steelers' DNA. That's not the way they operate. So they're going to try to win. They're going to try to find the best quarterback to lead this offense, and that's where they're going. Of course, Najee Harris is going to be a big part of it. Of course, the offensive line, if they get their some new players in here, which I think they will in free agency and the draft. Of course, that's going to be a big part of the quotient as well. But I just think right now they're looking for good competition. They want to have a competitive training camp where those guys are competing every single day. And I think by doing that, I think they believe they'll find a good starter once that's all over.
Top 100 picks in the draft right now. It's still pending right now. The Steelers are going to get a fourth-round statutory pick for the loss of Bud Dupree. Look at over the cap.com right now. If the Steelers are to get awarded with a fourth-round pick, it looks like it's be the number 105th pick overall in the draft. But as far as the draft going on right now, the Steelers, that is going in right now. They're going to be starting off 20th overall in the first round, 52nd in the second round, and 84th in the third round. If you had the priorities as far as the first three picks, would you go offensive lineman, quarterback, it's interior lineman, where it's the inside linebacker or defensive tackle, or would you go corner, lineman, guard? What would you say position-wise be 1 through 3? Where would you rank that as far as what you see in drafting, how it plays out?
Yeah, I think in terms of their needs, I would say, certainly quarterback, offensive line, defensive line. But even when I say that, I don't think Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis is going to fall to number 20. And then I think there's a drop-off after that. So if you're asking me where I think this is going for the Steelers, I think first round, probably trending offensive line or defensive line. Listen, you mentioned corner. I agree with you. It's probably going to be a big need for them. They just haven't drafted and developed corners all that well. They've actually had more success trading for guys or picking guys up in free agency. So I don't know if corner is in play in the first round. So, offensive line, defensive line, corner, receiver, quarterback, I could see them going all those different directions in the first 3 to 4 rounds. The only wild card for me, guys, is if Willis or Pickett is there at 20, then you got to make a decision, right? But if they're not, then I just think you take the best player available at a position of need, whether that's guard, center, tackle, maybe even corner too. So you got to make that call. But like I said at the top, I don't think Pickett or Willis is going to last till 20.
If it's not going to be Pickett or Willis, like what name is coming to mind for quarterback, more particularly, which is $1 million question right now in a lot of people's minds? Who would you say would seem to be at the top of your list then if it goes a little bit later? Probably someone like Matt Corral, Ole Mississippi, who is actually, by the way, he was great as most pure pocket passer right there. He has about the third most passing yards among the top 5 prospects. Graded with a pretty respectable grade, 6.4, where he could be a plus, or he could be a good starter within 2 years. if it's not him, who would you have in mind right now? These prospects would be like a Desmond Ritter, a Sam Howell. Who would it come if it's not Pickett or Willis then?
Yeah, I mean, for me, Corral or Ritter, I'm not a big Howell fan. I know he started out well in North Carolina, but he didn't play as well as Pickett in his last couple of years there. So, to me, it's like it's not a consideration when I take those guys in the first round. More than anything, is okay if Desmond Ritter falls to you at number 52, then do you take a flyer, on him at that point? Same with Corral. I don't think Corral is going to fall all the way to 52, but I think like most people, there's probably a little bit of a drop off after Pickett and Willis, and you could see maybe 20 or 30 picks go by before that next quarterback is taken. So to me, if Willis or Pickett isn't there, I'm not drafting a quarterback in the first round. But again, somebody falls to the second round that you have a high grade on, then maybe you get some value there, and maybe you take a flyer on that in round 2.
Yeah, real quick before I let you out here, I just want to say thank you once again for squeezing the time. Is one of the last topics before I get you out here real quickly. Now we're in this period right now. It's been quite a while. Ben Roethlisberger retiring. Since, as we mentioned earlier in the show to start off, remember the bridge from Terry Bradshaw to Ben Roethlisberger legitimately, 11 quarterbacks they had to go through in that time period earlier on before they got to 20 years later. And that list would include Cliff Stout back in 1983. Then you have Mark Malone for 4 seasons from 84 to 87. Bubby Brister for 3 years. Then you had Neil O'Donnell, of course. Everyone will still remember him for the Super Bowl 30 meltdown right there with the turnovers. Then you had Mike Tomczak for the 1 season, / Cordell Stewart for about a 5-year period, and Tommy Maddox, believe it or not, for 2 years. As an all-time Steeler, where would he be on your list? Because I got my list. I want to hear what you got to say first on this one, please.
Yeah, I mean,
and top 5, I'm going to go. Not top 4. I want to do top 5.
Top 5?
What will be your names?
For me, listen, it's Bradshaw and Roethlisberger, 1A and 1B.
So, like all positions is what I'm talking about. All the Steeler greats, just so I'm not throwing you off.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll go Roethlisberger number 1, Bradshaw number 2, and then after that, there's a real big steep drop off for me. Unless you want to go back to Bobby Lane, Bobby Lane was a good player. I'll go Bobby Lane number 3. Cordell, not very consistent, but I'll go Cordell number 4, and then Neil O'Donnell number 5. What you got?
Well, no, I was talking about Steelers players. I'm sorry, I threw you off. My bad. I mean Steelers players, like all positions, not just necessarily the quarterback. I'm so sorry. I apologize for that. That's what I was talking about.
Oh, I got you. Okay. I mean, I would say, for me, I think it would be hard to get Ben into the top 5 there. I mean, you got Bill Green, Franco Harris, Jack Lambert, Mac Ham, Mel Blunt. I mean, I can go on and on. And it's hard to, position players and quarterbacks. I mean, it's kind of hard to differentiate there. But I think all-time Steelers history, I'd definitely go Ben top 10. I'm just not sure if I had to get into my top 5.
Well, I tell you what. Here's what I'm gonna say. Believe it or not, be ready to brace yourself. I'm gonna go me Joe Green number 1. I mean, he is all-time the greatest Steeler all time, aside from the original Mr. Steeler, he's starting there. So that's number 1 for me. 2, I'm gonna give it to Ben Roethlisberger. He belongs number 2 on that list. Why? Because of the longevity. He's had the longest 10-year career amongst any Steeler, played the most seasons. And when you consider the drop-off between, like I said, Terry Bradshaw and Ben Roethlisberger, yeah, Bradshaw's got 2 more rings. He's got the franchise's only league MVP. That's only 1 in Steelers history, but they got defensive player of the years go around that. I think Ben Roethlisberger, just for how much he had to last and the numbers he put up, especially playing the time he's played through and the beatings he has to take. I will go number 3, Franco Harris, great running back. But the immaculate reception was a game changer for that franchise right there. That signaled the end of the lovable loser Steelers at that point. Even though they were starting to have some good winning football at that point, they showed they could be big time winners in the playoffs. Luck was on their side going from that point on. Or I will go with Jack Lambert, just that damn good in my opinion and well respected in Steelers lore and NFL history. And number 5, I go with Troy Polamalu because of how elusive he was. Listen, those 70 Steelers will always be great from that Steel Curtain dynasty, but I think there's a few guys you could move out of the way and make room for in today's game. I would think of Rod Woodson, but Rod Woodson did leave in free agency to go eventually to the Niners win his ring with the Ravens. I think there's something to be said for a guy like Troy Polamalu who made a pick 6 in the AFC Championship game to get them to the Super Bowl, as opposed to 1 year Rod Woodson had missed most of the season because of a knee injury. They did it without him. What would you say of that list?
I think it's a good list, and with the Steelers, almost like there's no way you can go wrong, right? Because I can argue Jack Ham over Ben Roethlisberger because a lot of people say Jack Ham and Lawrence Taylor are 2 of the greatest outside linebackers of all time, right? So that's the great thing. I mean, it's a great sort of talk show topic and something to debate, but nothing at all wrong with your list. Maybe I'm just listen, I'm almost 50. Maybe I'm more biased towards the Steelers of the 70s, but Ben, Troy, all those guys from the last 2 Super Bowl teams, they deserve their due as well.
Exactly. Well, hey, Ray, I just want to say thank you once again for squeezing the time. I know I kept you a little bit longer than what was originally, but appreciate you extending this just a little bit, just getting to that conversation right now. And really do love seeing your articles online and hearing your voice frequently on 93.7 The Fan, especially. It's always great to hear your take on the Steelers currently in today's times. You're really one of the legit guys out there. Thank you very much.
Anytime, glad to do it for you.
All right, Ray. Well, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Continue to stay safe, and let's enjoy a nice, beautiful St. Patty's Day weekend. Some spring weather coming up. Thanks again, my man. Okay. Take care. And that was Ray Fittipaldo once again of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Once again, you guys can follow him on Twitter at RayFit1. We're streaming on Facebook Live only today, as you guys can see right there. Man, some good stuff right there. Obviously, I don't blame him for still listing a little bit more players, Steelers players from the 70s. Of course, that's probably arguably one of the top 3 dynasties, if not the greatest championship dynasty, yet alone Super Bowl dynasty of all time, winning 4 in that decade. And just a precedent they set. I mean, we talked earlier, about this team. Characters. Listen, the killing thing about this too, and I mentioned this on a previous podcast. I know I said this in the past, but when Steeler Nation and fans let this sink in too, and people in the media, they had the offensive style team that leagues are trying to play to today. Listen, the Killer Bees recently, as an example, you had time right there where it's like, how did you not make a Super Bowl run in that time? What did they really have to show for it? They made 4 seasons in a row in the playoffs. At that span, but still came up short. They could only make it as high as to the AFC Championship game back in 2016. It should have been back-to-back years in the AFC Championship game, if not for the injuries to guys like Le'Veon Bell, especially Antonio Brown, courtesy of Vontaze Burfict. But again, that was a special time. And speaking of Antonio Brown, I don't know if anyone got to see the recent interview with Ryan Clark and Antonio Brown, along with Channing Frye, I believe, or Channing Crowder, and one other guy, former Dolphin, I think it's Chad Brown, on the pivot. But man, that was some good stuff right there. Listen to those guys make their talk. Basically talking about Antonio Brown's career right now, including like the fallout too they had. With like the going from the Steelers to the Raiders to the Patriots to the Bucs right there. I'll be honest with you too. I mean, it was nice to see Antonio Brown open up that way. I mean, I know he's had his blow-offs in the past. I mean, I really do want to see this guy succeed and have another opportunity. But at some point, too, I mean, when you talk about how, like, tell Mr. Rooney that, I see how Steelers veterans in the past get treated. And it's like, I don't want to be one of those people. I asked for my, release and they agreed. He goes on to the Raiders, had a chance to earn about $30 million right there. But because of the camaraderie and stuff right there, too. And then, of course, we all heard the storylines, too, with the helmet that he was going to need to be replaced by the league because the NFL could be liable if something were to happen to him. But he gets his way out of Oakland Raiders franchise at the time, and gets released and signs on with Brady and the Patriots only reunite with him and the Bucks. Listen, I understand, he's his own man. He doesn't need people like watching over him, but you gotta understand one thing, Antonio, and I truly don't want you to take this the wrong way, but Brian Clark is right on a lot of points right there. You gotta understand something, especially when you're with the Steelers at that time. People are going to be looking at you with higher expectations and a little bit more accountability. We'll see, but for right now, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I saw this guy right now. I mean, it was nice seeing him open up a little bit more. He was a little bit delusional in some of his points throughout that interview. You can check it out on YouTube. It debuted a couple of days ago. I just saw it Friday evening. I fell asleep for like first 24 minutes, but saw the whole thing last night. But feel free to check that out coming up. But anyway, like I said, too, I think for the Steelers right now, that's where they need to go. And, yeah, I don't think you can go wrong either way. Again, quarterback, to me, it's not that much of a priority this season. I do not mind waiting a year and getting players that's going to help this team right now because at the end of the day, a guy like Ed Bouchette, he's right. No matter who you put in center, if you had Russell Wilson coming over here or Aaron Rodgers, you don't think that offensive line is going to be an issue? I mean, to protect. I mean, listen, the Steelers didn't make no offer as far as huge compensation. They're not going to give up. They're not going to push heaven and earth to get this guy on this team. Not happening, either of them. I had a brief hope for him. I put on Twitter and Instagram, but still, things change. But real quickly, before I close out, I must say right now, for Monday Night Football, I cannot wait. We're going to be seeing, as announced, as Joe Buck is expected to leave. No, he's leaving Fox to go on to ESPN to join Troy Aikman on Monday Night Football for the new announced team right now, and that has been pushed for a lot. I mean, well, it's potential. Excuse me. But anyway, I mean, for Joe Buck to if he is able to officially go on leave right now and join that broadcast crew for the moment, yeah, I mean, for ESPN, wow, I must say right now that'd be a huge beyond. And for right now, because he is supposed to be leaving Fox Sports ESPN, where will become the voice of Monday Football, and with his tag team partner Troy Aikman. It's not a done deal yet, but Fox right now, Buck has 1 year and nearly $10 million remaining on his contract, and Fox for right now is letting him out early as a gesture for his years of service to the company. He expected to sign a contract in the 5-year, $60 to $75 million range with ESPN, according to sources. Fox did try to keep Buck with an offer of $12 million per year, but man, I tell you what, Monday Night Football, no disrespect to soon-to-be potential candidate Louis Riddick. I enjoyed him. I thought he was the better of the three on that trio with Brian Greasy, and then of course I forget the other guy's name, but still that announced team needed to go. Monday Night Football was last legit when you had Al Michaels, John Madden. I'd probably go Mike Tirico in fairness. Mike Tirico and John Gruden. Though John Gruden has his issues with the racial comments, but still, it was good for TV the way he electrified Monday Night Football. I thought he was a valuable voice. But to have guys like Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, especially too, which makes a lot of sense too, they called night games too, aside from playoff games, especially Thursday night games. So you gotta believe they got their warm-ups on the football side. Joe Buck's no stranger to primetime nightly baseball games on Fox. I'd be wondering what's going to happen with theirs. So if he's leaving Fox altogether and no more filling, Fox baseball, that will be a huge thing to consider right there. But for right now, I mean, they're looking at Kevin Burkhardt as far as like one of the potential replacements. And I think right now with former Bears tight end Greg Olsen to be Joe Buck's replacement. So Kevin Burkhardt, he's an internal favorite to replace Fox for the NFL as their lead broadcaster. And I would think, too, that Greg Olsen would probably be that guy right alongside with him. We'll see. But anyway, we'll see if Greg Olsen gets promoted to that position from the B squad to the A team. But anyway, that's going to do it for this edition here of the Men of Steel podcast. Once again, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Men of Steel CGR and on Instagram at Men of Steel Nation. As I leave you, don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, sirs. Here we go. I gone.